Okay, so we talked about, or we stopped yesterday discussing the charity, right? So we were on, let me pull up classroom. Forms. We're on schedule, let's see, schedule A. Okay. So you put your home mortgage interest there, which I'll give you either in the fact pattern or I'll give you the 10, the form 1098, which will have the mortgage interest on it. And you'll just put that there in 8A. And just following the instructions, 8B, we're not going to put anything. So that's going to be a 0, C, 0, D, 0, E, add A through D. But if B, C, and D are all zeros, what do you just have to put in E? Yeah, what you put in A. Okay. And then 9 is going to be 0 because we're not going to look at the form 4952. So what do you put in 9? 0. So what do you put in 10? Whatever's in 8E, which was whatever's in 8A, right? It's just kind of a drop down, okay? So gifts to charity. In order to deduct something that you give to charity, the organization has to be a 501c3 organization. 501c3. Any organization that sticks their toes into politics, into policy, they are not a 501c3. They may be a 504, but they're not a 501c3. Where do you think we come up with that designation 501c3? Where does that name come from? What do you think it comes from? Okay, where does 401k come from? Do I have a big book somewhere in my classroom? Well, yes, it comes, it's an employer-sponsored plan, but where does the name 401k come from?
It's like the line.
In the big book, right? What was that big book that was like that thick? The tax code. So 501c3 also comes from the section in the tax code that designates the rules for these organizations. Okay, so you cannot be involved in politics. When you give money to, let's say, a campaign, right? Let's go kind of obvious politics. You give money to a campaign, there's going to be that little disclaimer at the bottom, letting you know that this money is not tax deductible, okay? Because a campaign is obviously political, so you cannot deduct that money from your taxes. It must be 501c3, okay? So I'm going to give y'all a fact, and we'll actually take a look at the sample fact pattern shortly, but you will see a list of things that are individual or couple gives, money that they give. Some of them are going to be 501c3, some of them aren't. So you have to make that determination, okay? Which ones to include and which ones not. You're going to add up all the ones that will be included. Okay, one thing that I need to mention here, churches. Are churches considered 501c3 organizations? Yes. Churches are considered 501c3. Okay. So any money that you give to your church, I don't know what just happened on that. That's weird. the screen. It's not happening on here. Yeah. The money that you give to your church and contributions, that is all deductible. Okay. Which may be a reason why you should give either online to your church, if your church does that, or by writing out a check. Why do you think you should give that way rather than just giving cash? What is writing a check or giving online through like a website? It records it. Okay, and so you kind of want a record of all your cash gifts to the church, right? So anytime you give money to an organization, make sure that you keep record of it for the purposes of this deal, right? So you're gonna add all that up in the fact pattern and put that number here in number 11, okay? Don't worry about this sentence right here for now. If you made any gift over $250 or more, see instructions. That's essentially the government saying, hey, we want you've claimed to make a gift over $250. We need you to provide evidence that and so that's where the receipts come in, your donations and stuff come in, okay? But we're not gonna worry about that, okay? So you're just gonna add them all up and put that number there, okay? Okay, we're not gonna worry about this, so this is gonna be a 0, carry over 0. So line 14, you just take the number that was in line 11 and put it over here in line 14, okay? Casualty and theft losses, we're not going to worry about that. That's going to be a 0, 16, 0. And in line 17, all you need to do is look at everything that's in this column, the far right column that you put in here, and just add it up for line 17. Okay. At this point, you are going to make a determination whether you should take your itemized deduction or take the standard. Which one are you going to take? Whichever is what? Well, higher or lower? Which one are you going to take? This is a deduction. Higher. Because you want to deduct the most from your taxable income or from your adjusted gross income to get to your taxable income. Okay. So line 17 is you're gonna take it, come back over here to the 1040, and we're still on that first page, okay? So line 9, if your itemized deduction is higher, you're gonna take the number that's on line 17 of Schedule A and put it in line 9 here on the 1040. If your standard deduction is higher, then you're just gonna put either this number or this number. All right, that's it. Okay. So this number 10 is going to be 0. So number 9, line 9A, or sorry, line 11A is just going to be what you have in line 9. Moved over. Okay. And then your taxable income, line 11B, you're going to subtract line, let me make that a little bigger. You're going to subtract line 11A from line 8B. So line 8B was your adjusted gross income, so you subtract it. Make sense? Okay, we're almost done. Because at this, when you have your taxable income, now you have to calculate your tax. So remember that tax practice that we did to calculate our taxes? Yes? That's where that comes in. So I'm going to provide to y'all a tax bracket for married and for single. You'll have to determine which one to use. Okay. But you calculate those taxes out, and the number that you get on that calculation is going to go here to 11A. Or sorry, 12A. Goodness, and I've had my coffee. Okay. In 12B, you just copy that number over. Okay, we're not going to be worried about this stuff right here. Okay, just put it here in 12A, and then copy that calculation over to 12B. Okay, child tax credit. Okay, let's take a look real quick. Child, see if there was any changes. Tax credit 2020. Okay. Straight to the source, the IRS. Okay. Internal Revenue Service. Okay. Now, a lot of people hate the IRS because of they have to pay taxes to the IRS. That's misplaced hate. The IRS's job is just to carry out the law. Who writes the tax law? Specifically who? And oh, actually, for any tax change, tax increase or tax decrease, it must start in the House. It must. That's in Constitution. Okay, so so the Congress writes the tax law. The IRS just carries it out. Okay, and the IRS's budget has been cut a lot over the years, which is a shame because studies have shown that for every dollar that every taxpayer dollar that goes into funding the IRS, they are able to get a return of $7 in additional tax revenue. And this is because that despite the IRS's best efforts, do people cheat on their taxes? Yeah. The IRS would like to enforce the tax law on those people who cheat, but to enforce requires money. And if they don't have the resources, then we're allowing people who cheat on their taxes to continue to cheat on their taxes, which increases the burden for the rest of us honest people who don't cheat on our taxes. So yeah, it's kind of messed up there, right? So child tax credit. Okay, taxpayers may be able to claim a child tax credit if they have a qualifying child under the age of 17. Anybody here 17 yet? Huh? You're 17? Leo, your parents have lost the child tax credit for you. Okay. Part of this credit can be refunded. Okay. So a dependent who does not, here are some of the numbers to know before claiming a child tax credit or the credit for other dependents. $2,000, the maximum amount of a child tax credit per qualifying child. Okay. So what we're going to do, let me move this out of the way. What we're going to do is, remember how we had those dependents where you would put the name of the person here? If in the sample deal, it says, or if in the fact pattern, it says that these children are under the age of 17, then you will assume that they meet the requirements for being a qualified child, and you will check this box. So for every box you checked here, how much is it worth? $2,000. So this $2,000 per child, you'll put that, let's say we have 2 qualifying children. So how much should we put in 13A? $4,000. Okay. Okay, we don't have to worry about 13. Okay, so 13B says add schedule 3. We're not going to worry about schedule 3, line 7, and line 13A to the total. So you'll take the 13A amount, throw it over to 13B. And is this going to increase your tax bill, or is it going to decrease your tax bill? What do you think? Child tax credit. Increase or decrease? Daniel. Increase or decrease your tax bill? A child tax credit will decrease your tax bill, right? So you get, each child you have is worth $2,000 for you. Yes, it is. Which you are Leo, when did you turn 17? Over the summer. Ooh. I don't know if your parents will get the child tax credit for you when they file their taxes in 2020. I don't know when is that cutoff. Maybe they get half. I don't know if it's prorated or not. But for everybody else who's under 17, you're worth $2,000 a year to your parents in taxes. So you can use that for your Christmas gift wish list. Hey, mom, dad, I hear I'm worth $2,000 to you per year. Keep that in mind for Christmas. Right? Of course, Heaven, you already got your Christmas present? Oh, that was your birthday present? Do you know if your parents are going to combine it to your Christmas? Oh, that's lucky. My parents would have combined it. Yeah. Well, that's a good attitude to have. All right. So it's going to lower, and you can see that here in 14. Subtract line 13B from line 12B. Okay. So it's going to lower your tax bill. If 0 or less, so we're not going to have a negative here. You just put 0, right? Okay. Because let's say your tax bill was only $3,000, but you have 2 kids, so you have $4,000 in tax credits. So you're just going to put 0, which means your total tax is going to be 0. Okay. And anything that you paid in withholding is going to be refunded to you because you don't have, because of the child tax, you don't have a tax obligation. Okay. All right. 15, we're not self-employed, so we're going to put 0 there. Total tax is just adding 14 and 15 together. You put in line 16. And then federal income tax withheld. Where are you going to get that information from? W-2. Perfect. Okay. Put that here. And okay, we're not going to worry about 18 at all. Okay, so 18E is just going to be 0. And you just bring line 17 down to 19. Now, here is the determination on whether you will get a refund check or whether you have to cut a check to the IRS. If your line 19, the amount that you have paid already to the government, is less than line 16, your total tax, you will have to write a check for the difference. If line 19 is greater than line 16, you are going to get a refund check. Okay. And so you can see those instructions spelled out in line 20. If line 19 is more than line 16, subtract 16 from 19. This is the amount you overpaid. That's a refund. So you're going to get reimbursed. You've given the government a an interest-free loan.
I thought you were gonna actually get more money.
No, you don't get more money. It's just they're giving you back money that you've already paid. Right? I mean, that's a refund, isn't it? Okay. Okay, and that's the amount refunded to you. Okay, so line 23, you go down. So line 21 is just like, okay, you're going to get a refund. Where do you want that refund to be sent? Do you want it to be sent to you in a form of a check? We can do that. Or do you want it to be just directly deposited into your bank account? If so, we need your routing number for your bank and your account number. Okay, so you put that information in and they'll send it out to you. Okay. Or line 22, do you want to take this refund and just apply it to your next year's taxes? Don't choose that. Well, I mean, nothing happened. It's applied to next year's, but the reason you're getting a refund is because you overpaid, right? So what you're saying is, and they haven't paid you any interest on that, right? So what you're saying to the government by checking line 22 is saying, hey, government, I know I gave you an interest-free loan for, in this case, 2019. Go ahead and keep that money for another interest-free loan to apply to my next year's taxes. All right. So no, take the money, put it in your bank, save it. At least you're earning interest that way. All right. Okay. But let's say you owe money. Okay. 23, line 23, amount you owe. Subtract line 19 from line 16. Okay. This is how much you will pay. So line 23 is going to be a tax bill. Line 20 will be a tax refund. So you're not going to fill out both of them on the same return. It's going to be an either or, depending on the amounts in line 19 and 16. Okay. And then you're finished. That's it. That was the last step. It is a lot, but it follows a pattern. And as we practice it, as we go through the sample, you'll see, you know, it makes sense. The idea that taxes have to be complicated, only if you have multiple sources of income. But for most Americans, it's not all that complicated. Yes.
What if, say, someone's just bad at math, they end up cheating their taxes on accident?
Okay.
Whatever.
So if it is a mistake, there may be some penalty, like depending on if you overpaid or underpaid. If you underpaid, there may be some interest and fees, but generally speaking, if you have made an honest mistake, the IRS is likely to forgive that mistake and get it corrected for you. Okay. If you are intentional, or you are, have y'all heard of the saying, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered? Okay, it's something that my tax professor always used. The idea is, if you take a little leeway in your taxes, you may be okay. But the more risky you get in more aggressive you get in trying to deduct things that you probably shouldn't, or you know, stretch the tax code to try to make it out, the more likely you are to get caught. And when you've made those moves, the IRS is going to be less forgiving. Okay, because it shows that you're trying to get away with something.
So they really just kind of look more into people kind of staying like around the boundary rather than outlier.
Yeah, and the tax court has ruled that as such, saying that you know, on tax, they recognize that the tax code can be complicated. It can be. So on honest mistakes, we're not going to hammer them as hard as blatant disregard and malfeasance, right? Some people have tried to argue that the income tax is unconstitutional. In my opinion, that's idiotic. Because, I don't know what their justification is, but our 16th Amendment to the Constitution,
I don't remember.
well, 16th grants the federal government the authority to assert an income tax. So if the 16th Amendment gives the federal government the authority to tax incomes, can it be unconstitutional? No. And so the tax court has said, look, because they've had people argue, like not pay their federal income taxes and try to argue in front of them that, hey, tax court or income taxes are unconstitutional. Tax court has like, shut up, get out of here. We're going to hit you with penalties. We're going to assess further, because that argument is just, it doesn't hold water. It's a frivolous argument. Okay. So, yeah, I don't get it on that.
What about the alcohol one? Is this like the one with temperance? Illegal then now.
So alcohol laws vary from state. Like that's a state that's considered part of the police powers. that are reserved by the states in the 10th Amendment to our Constitution. So the 10th Amendment essentially says all powers not given to the federal government are reserved by the state. One of those is the police power, the ability to create things like speed limits, different rules and regulations, right? Federal government could never create a speed limit. They don't have the authority to do that.
Could they suggest what?
They could, and they could say, hey, we're gonna, if you change your speed limits, we will give you a big bag of money. They could do that. They did that with the drinking age, right? It used to be that each state had their own drinking age. Some states were 18, some were 21. And the federal government, because of drunk driving instances, they said, hey, we have this big bag of federal highway money. If you raise your drinking age to 21, you'll get this bag. A lot of states were like, okay, we'll raise our age to 21. And some states said no. And the states that said no and kept their drinking age at 18, they didn't get the bag of money. At this point, though, every state has said yes, and they've gotten the money.
Didn't they actually lower it to 18 because it was like, because of the Vietnam War?
That was voting. That was drinking was was way before then. So, and some states had you can still have state laws be ruled unconstitutional. For example, I believe it was Oklahoma that had a different drinking age for men versus women. Men could drink at 18, women had to be 21. And that was ruled unconstitutional because there was no there was no basis for the gender discrimination on that. It did not meet up to the intermediate scrutiny that's required by the courts for gender discrimination.
Seems like that should be switched, because at that age, women are more mature.
Right, but it had to do with this idea that you have to protect women. Kind of deal. But that was Oklahoma, I believe. But it was ruled unconstitutional on that. Okay, so let's take a look at the fact pattern I've given you. I posted it in Google Classroom, so we'll just read through it here. Okay, so if you look at the instructions, okay, guys, this is going to be due Wednesday. Okay, so I want y'all to work on it today and tomorrow. It's due at midnight Wednesday. So this is what we'll be working on tomorrow as well. Okay, for people at home, I need you to print out a copy of these forms, 1040, Schedule 1, Schedule A, and Schedule B. Okay, you're going to use this sample to practice filling out the form. And then when you're done, for the people at home, I want you to take pictures and submit it. Even for y'all in class, just to keep it all the same, when you are finished with the filling out the forms, take pictures of the forms and submit them to this assignment, okay? So let's read through the sample real quick. Heaven, you want to start us off reading the first paragraph?
Parker Lewis Kent lived at 911 Metropolis Way, Austin, Texas, 78704. They have two children under the age of 18. Jimmy Kent, 777.
You don't have to read their social.
And Lex Kent. Clark works in private law.
Real quick, do you notice about Lex Kent's social? Yeah, but what's the significance of all those? 666. It's Lex Kent, Lex Luthor, the bad guy. Therefore, he gets the devil number.
Wait, is Superman in Metropolis?
Yes, that's why it's Clark Kent and Lois. They got married. Clark and Lois Kent. Jimmy Kent, that's Jimmy Olsen. Okay, go on.
Clark works in private law enforcement at 55 Security, and Lois teaches journalism in Austin for the Daily Longhorn, a local and magazine public school That's where you'll find their W-2.
Okay, if you want to continue reading, that's fine, or if you want to jump to someone else.
I need this up.
Okay, all right,
Okay, 5 years ago, Parker, Lois bought their house in Austin and had 25 years left on their 30-year mortgage they took out from Wayne Enterprise in 2012. Lois loves teaching journalism and subscribes to a classroom set of the Austin American Statesman. So there are students who study and analyze examples from professional reporters. However, the school that the students can study it. However, the school does not reimburse her for this expense, and she ends up paying $350 a year for the classroom set.
okay, stop real quick. How much can she deduct? 250. Okay. Go on.
Parker and Lois are fairly broke.
Frugal.
Oh, frugal.
Frugal means that they
Save
are
money.
save money, yeah.
They are fairly frugal with their money and are able to put away $4,500 each and into their IRAs each year. While they would like to max out the 5,900 contribution.
Okay, time real quick. So this is an older example. I haven't updated the max contribution because now it's 6,500. But because they're funding underneath that, the maximum doesn't really matter in this case. On the test one, I will update the numbers, but this is the one I had in PDF form already. So go ahead.
They would like to max out 5,500 contributions, leading into Jimmy and Lex.
Feeding little Jimmy and Lex.
Sorry, feeding little Jimmy and Lex can be expensive. In addition, throughout the year, Clark and Lois spend about $30,000 a year on taxable goods. They need for themselves and their children. All they have purchased has been subject to Texas 8.25% state tax / local sales tax.
Okay.
Parks and Lois give money to a number of nonprofit organizations. Parks supports National Space Society. I need to read that in the
Well, just say a 501c3.
501c3. Lois supports National Resources Defense Council, 501c3. Clark also supports the Republican National Committee in the amount of $100,000 a year. Lois supports the Democratic National Committee in the amount of $100,000 a year. Clark and Lois are heavily involved in their church and give $9,000 a year to their church, Small Good Community Church. Clark and Lois have received a 199.
A 1099.
Oh, a 1099. A 1099 from their following banks: Smallville Credit Union, $50. Fortress Solitude Bank, $150. Clark and Lois have received a 1099
DIV.
from their following investment banks: Fortress of Solitude invests in $500 ordinary dividends. Luther
Equities.
$250 ordinary dividends.
Okay, so you can see there's a lot of information that's going to be there, and hopefully you started putting an idea of where this information is going to go in the tax code, or sorry, in the tax forms. Okay, so if you keep on scrolling down, we're going to go ahead and use this tax table. I know it's from 2016, but well, this is the one that we'll use. Okay. So you can see prior to 2017, the top tax rate was 39.6%. Okay, now it's 37%. But it's okay. I mean, we're not going to get up that high. Okay. So here is Clark's W-2. Okay. How much did he pay? How much did he withhold in taxes? 17,000. Okay. He had $85,000 of income. He paid 17,000 in taxes. These are the two numbers that you'll need to keep in mind. What is Clark's social security number? Yeah, right up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Really easy to remember. Okay. All right. Okay, here's Lois Kent's W-2. How much did she make? 50,000. So combined, 50,000 plus 85,000 is how much money, Daniel? 135,000. What about their combined with tax withholding? Clark had 17. Lois had 10. 27,000. Okay. And her social security number is?
Oh,
It's reverse. I made it simple on myself. 987-654-321. Okay. Okay, and here is the form 1098. So this is going to be your mortgage interest form. Okay, how much did they pay in interest?
nothing.
Oh, no, that's mortgage interest premiums. What's box one say?
Oh, more than-
Uh-huh. 10,000. Right here, box one. Okay, so that's where you're going to find the mortgage interest. Okay. And that's it. Okay, so you're going to use all this information that's here to fill out your tax return. Okay, so I want y'all to go ahead and get started on that. We'll be working on it today and tomorrow. Okay, so do a little bit work on it at home so that you can come tomorrow if you have questions and answer them and ask them during class. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And for those of y'all online, you can go ahead and get started as well. And if you have questions as you go through it, comment in the Google Classroom page so I can respond directly to you. All right, see y'all later.